Yes, so Pinterest is kind of like a hidden gem, but once you figure it out, it's so great. I mean, it's not a hidden gem for a lot of people. Like it has 320 million active users each month, which is just crazy.
You are listening now, Female Entrepreneur and Me, the episode 59.
Irene Yu is your podcast host. She is the founder of Female Entrepreneur and Me, an online community that brings together mighty female entrepreneurs. If you are a content creator, provide a service online, are a coach or consultant, then this podcast is about you. We talk about mindsets, strategies, tactics, and share our stories.
Today's episode, I invited my student Natalie to our show. Natalie is a travel blogger, content creator who is also based in Berlin. We talk about what brought her to Berlin and what triggered her to start her own travel blog. You probably think travel blog might be dead this year with a pandemic happening, but that's not true. We will talk about how she stood out in the crowded travel blogging world and finds her own niche as a freelancing content creator with our coaching help. We also revealed how I suggested she manage her editorial planning to maximize her productivity. If you are blogging, there is also one more thing you cannot miss out, which is Pinterest. If you still think Pinterest is a social media, then you are missing out. Pinterest is more like a search engine nowadays. So now let's jump in and start our episode today. Hi, Natalie. Welcome to Female Entrepreneur and Me. Could you please introduce yourself to our listener?
Hi, Irene. Yes, I'm Natalie Avila, and I'm a writer and editor living in Berlin. I'm also the writer behind the website natalieetc.com, where I primarily write about my favorite places in Berlin and my transition of moving to Berlin from the United States.
Tell us a little bit about your story and what brought you to Berlin.
So I first visited Berlin in 2014 when I was 16 with a travel company connected to my school after taking a European history class. Berlin was our first stop and my first time traveling internationally. And the entire time that I was here, only for 2 nights, I was so like tired and delirious after the flight, but it still became one of my most memorable parts of that trip. Like something about the city just really intrigued me, and I knew that I wanted to come back for longer. So then a couple years later, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Berlin, and I immediately hopped on the chance. And I loved the 4 months I spent here so much. But it still wasn't enough of Berlin for me, and I just didn't have enough of the culture and the people and history. So then I decided that when I graduated university, I really wanted to come back here. So I spent my last few years in school spending plenty of time researching my move over here. It was basically a part time job planning my move across the world. And I just spent so many hours planning and thinking about it. At the end of my time in school, through my internship, I got a job opportunity in Berlin as a travel copywriter, and I took the opportunity. And so last year I moved here with my cat, and a few months later my boyfriend joined me too. And now I still write as a travel copywriter, but I've also been expanding my writing career with my blog and freelance writing.
Okay, so you mentioned about your blog. So why did you want to start a travel blog? It's because you want to document all your relocation journey, or you actually already started back in the US?
I did not start my blog back in the US. I have my parents really to thank for my love of travel. They've really just like fostered mine and my sister's appreciation of cities and natural beauty and culture and history. When I was a kid, I would scrapbook and document my travels around the United States, and I've been to about 40 of the 50 states. And as I grew older and I started traveling to different countries as well, I really wanted a more modern way to talk about my travels and help people with planning their trips. I would always love doing it with family and friends, and I just really wanted to expand that. I tried to create a YouTube channel for a bit and it just didn't stick, but blogging was on my mind for a while. And it just makes sense with me spending so much time writing already. I kept pushing it back and not wanting to begin because it just never seemed like the perfect time. But after the pandemic hit earlier this year, I realized that there's really never going to be a perfect time for anything. And if you want to do something, you just have to
Exactly.
start. Yeah. So
Mhm.
I just finally started putting in the time and commitment to my blog. And I'm really glad I did because it's just grown a lot in the past few months.
Yeah. So today, actually, I know because a lot of people listening to our podcast are actually a blogger, and everybody still have a big question about, oh, is I still working? It's 2020. Can bloggers still make money, or can you still monetize blog? And okay, let's even put the money side apart. How do you even start to write a blog post? There's a keyword research, there's a topic research, there's kind of like website which one you should use, and blah blah blah. There are so many things that you need to decide. So tell us a little bit, how do you write your new blog post?
So this is actually something that I'm still developing. I use Notion, Trello, and Google Sheets just to organize everything with my writing. I have a huge document on Notion where I just throw all my ideas regarding like any kind of topic that I might want to write about or that I think I have enough knowledge to write about. And then typically about midway through the month, I go through the list and I decide specifically, okay, this is what I want to write about. And then from there, I see if it makes sense for the following month. I make the selection to do research about what my audience actually wants to hear about and also what I feel like is missing from other bloggers in my niche right now that people want to know about. As much as I'd like to just write about fully what I want to write about, I know that I can be smarter about it and, do research. And then from there, I see what's possible to write about for the following month. For example, I might want to write about my favorite spas in Berlin, and I might think that my readers want to hear about it, and I might see a gap in the market for that kind of post. But if spas are closed, like how they currently are in Berlin right now, then I can't do proper research and I have to just kind of hold off writing on that. Um, After my posts are officially decided, I do technical research like keyword research and SEO. I like the websites neilpatel.com and moz.com. From there, I create an outline of the post, including like what kind of photos I want to include. And I might have to go schedule time to go take these photos if I don't already have relevant ones. And then I edit the photos on Lightroom and Pixlr. I write the post and I market it typically to my subscribers in Pinterest. My issue with like my process is that I typically do my process over a few days rather than just one single day. But I've been talking to you about through female entrepreneur and me and through our coaching sessions about what makes most sense. And so we're figuring out and testing out different types of content planning that work best for me and my business. Because it would be nice to have things planned a couple months in advance rather than a couple of weeks, because then it gives more room for me to find flexibility with putting time aside for my blog and whatnot.
Let me explain a little bit more here. There are really a lot of different tasks you need to do in order to finish one blog post. Especially she also has like the shooting, taking picture part. So what I typically see that most people are having hard time to be consistent is the way that they work. Because they don't know how brain
Hmm.
function. So if you can like take out your task, put in the same task and do it in the same day or same half day or that couple of hours, and you really block your calendar to only work that task, you will be way more sufficient. So if you go on YouTube, you will see all the YouTuber, not all the YouTuber, a lot of YouTuber, especially business type of YouTuber, they always tell you, oh, how I batch content for 3 months, how I batch content for a couple of months, like that, because they put the
Right.
same thing to work the same time, the same day. And on the other hand, there's also one more thing about your brand is that, for example, if you want to do all the things, all those different workflow for blog posts in one day, The thing is, the brain needs some time to get into that motion. And then once you switch to do another task, it needs a little bit more time to get into that motion. So that's why you feel like you are not very productive. You didn't do much. It's because your brain is keep on and off, on and off, on and off.
Right. And I end up wasting more time if I, put like 90 minutes aside a day and then it becomes like 2 hours and then 3 hours rather than just having like a full day where I can just
Yeah,
focus.
exactly. So that's what I can give everybody a little bit advice about, like how to divide your task to different days and block your calendar and to actually do that. And then you will be way more consistent in terms of creating content. That's a lot of people are in the beginning of content creation. Yeah, that's hopefully help everybody. And okay, so let's go to the next question. Finding your niche is really important in order to stand out in a crowded freelancing, copywriting world. So could you share with us how you narrow it down?
So, my niche is being a Berlin based blogger who writes about city life and my transition to Berlin. I mainly write for people in their 20s and 30s who are new to the city and need tips, whether that's cafes to try in the city or information on navigating how to move here. I want my blog to be a resource for people in the city. And I also hope that, that people can see my blog as one of their first friends in Berlin. You and I have worked together quite a bit finding my niche. While I strongly want my writing to be travel based in these times where travel isn't always possible, I've expanded what I want to write about more. For example, I wrote a post about small businesses in Berlin so that people can shop local and things that are still relevant today rather than, writing a post about the best places in Germany to travel to because that's not realistic right now. I've also found that most of the blog posts about Berlin done by locals are quite short and written about very specific businesses or just a couple of businesses. And I like writing long posts like the best American foods in Berlin or 50 of the best brunch spots in Berlin. And it might take longer for me to write my posts, but they end up doing much better in Google keyword
Mm-hmm.
search. And so, yeah, it's been a process. And I think what my one of my biggest struggles was before I started talking with Irene is that I just didn't know my niche at all. Like I didn't know who I was writing for. I would switch up like the theme of my blog like every other week because I didn't know who was reading my posts or who I wanted to read my posts. But now I realize that I think it's best for me to focus on people like me and people who are new to the city rather than trying to accommodate like for families and for couples and for like everyone else. I'm just writing about people for people who are mainly new to Berlin or who maybe want to find a bit of spark in the city during these like weird times.
Mm-hmm. I have worked with several freelancer in past, copywriter or content creator. I found out a lot of people when they start do freelancing, a lot of them started as a content creator or a copywriter. The thing is, if you want to stand out in this market, you need to have a specific niche. Otherwise, you really compete in the big ocean, and you only way you can do is to decrease your price, especially when you just start, right? If you already have like a lot of referral, and then it might be a bit better. But then when you just starting out, you don't have any specific niche. You really just compete with price, and this is what I see a lot of Berlin freelancer group, which I'm also one of the admin in the group right now. So I'm not saying that everybody has to charge a lot. It's not everybody's business goal. However, freelancer, you actually have a lot of costs to cover. That's why I always encourage people to look for niche specific market to start. And you can like be very good in that market. So you stand out very fast. Of course, then you can start to charge more. Second, you can develop several online product later on so that you don't have to always work your time, like you don't always change money with time. And that's what it's tough, because you want to grow your business, you got to take more clients, or you not need to take the bigger clients, or the clients who are you will willing to pay more, or corporate client. I don't know. So
Right.
yeah, that's why it's very important to find your niche, and to work on that industry, and get to know more your person, buyer persona, or ideal customer avatar, that what are they pinpoint, how your service can help them, and what's your unique selling position. That's what I find out would be the most help for freelancing writer and editor or copywriter.
Right. It's the whole like if you try to please everyone, then you end up pleasing no one kind of idea.
Although I know I've done freelancing a little bit for myself in the past, I know sometimes it's very scary to narrow down to niche specific one, because my mean that you have to refuse some of the clients. But funny thing is, every time, and especially when I start to do business coaching this year, I decided to niche down. Before, I was focusing on all type of online business, no niche specific, any type of online business I would take as a client. But then I realized that no, it doesn't work, because it's not like every type of business that I know very well, especially like a product business. It's not what I know the best. I'm more know better about the content and personal branding, that type of business, or coach, right? And then I in the beginning that was a very scary thing to do, but then I just attract more and more people who are aligned with me to be my client, so I don't feel bad about taking wrong clients anymore, or feel like I was a business coach then I turned to a life coach, like that. So because some people they want to start business, but in the meanwhile they have also had a lot of problem with their self, so they can't really focus. So yeah, that's the thing. It's very scary to say no, but you will attract the right one only by starting saying no. That's what I've learned and really experienced myself also. So don't be afraid. Good things worth wait. Yeah. So you mentioned like Pinterest is the most traffic driving social media. I think a lot of people are very surprised about that. I know people who are in blog businesses, like this is no news. However, like last week, I told my friend about that. They were like, "What? Pinterest? Is there anyone using Pinterest?" I'm like, because they are probably working more in B2B environment, B2B products. So Pinterest might not be like a tool that they would use. So, tell us a bit about how to use Pinterest to bring more traffic to your blog.
Yes, so Pinterest is kind of like a hidden gem, but once you figure it out, it's so great. I mean, it's not a hidden gem for a lot of people. Like it has 320 million active users each month, which is just crazy. But a lot of people don't think to use it to promote their content just because, sometimes you make posts on there and they don't get any views and it's can be hard to get followers and it's just like a little weird for a lot of people to figure it out. But the thing is, you don't look at Pinterest like a social media. You should be looking at it like a search
Yes,
network.
exactly.
Yeah, and so you can really use that, and I use that to my advantage because people are searching for very specific things on there, and it's easier for people to find my post on there than on Google because Pinterest doesn't rely on things like domain authority, so it gives so much more of a shot to smaller creators like myself. There's also not a lot of Berlin based content on Pinterest that is done by locals. It is typically people with travel blogs who write about different cities that they visit. Rather than like the city specifically that they're from. And so I'm able to really use that to my advantage because if I make a pin and I include that I'm a local on the pin. Like best brunch places in Berlin as said by a local, it gets so many more clicks and views. And I'm able to also use Canva to create pins. And I just absolutely love Canva. I can be a graphic designer with no real effort and then use tags to share my posts. And yeah, it's a lot of like trial and error, but once you figure it out, and that's like you're gonna have to do research as to like what your specific market is looking for. But once you figure it out, I think that it's more helpful than places like Instagram. I really like it.
So how many more traffic Pinterest actually brought to your blog? Do you have that number right now?
So I get currently about like 12,000 views per month on my blog, and I would say that about half of them are from Pinterest. So it's like a very like big driving source for traffic for like very little effort.
So, do you like have some sort of like, can you give share us a little bit like how you do this step by step? Like, will you do it after before you publish your blog post, and how do you do that step by step?
I do it after publishing my blog post. I also typically go on Canva and they have like an assortment of like copyright free photos that I could use that maybe have a little bit more of a drawing factor than one of my photos. But at times that I use my own photos to create pins as well. And then, yeah, I go on Canva. They have a tab for creating Pinterest pins. So you're able to see like designs done by tons of other people and you can use them for free. And the pin will come in the proper size of a Pinterest pin. And then from there, I save the photo and then I share it on Pinterest. I do like some like research for hashtags that I think are best. Hashtags don't really matter when you're using Pinterest on desktop, but they can really, really help out a lot on mobile. Um, and then from there, I will typically copy like a snippet of my own blog post to include in like the intro. And then after that, I just post. And it's like, it sounds really simple, but like with a mixture of like research, you can find like what tags are best for your market. And I think, again, what really, really helps me out a lot is the fact that people are constantly searching like European travel and like travel to Europe and Euro trip and like travel to Germany, travel to Berlin. But like a lot of people who are locals are not posting on Pinterest. It's mainly just people from like other areas. So I'm able to like really ride the fact that there aren't a lot of like Berlin locals who are using Pinterest. So I can use that. And if people see one post that says top 10 things to do in Berlin and another post that says like top 10 things to do in Berlin as said by a Berlin local, they're like much more willing to click on that one.
Yeah, so I have to say, like, because I started FEN in Chinese Mandarin. I also use Pinterest, but sadly, Pinterest doesn't work
Mhm.
that well in Mandarin or Chinese. So people who are using like English
Mm.
speaking should totally take great advantage of Pinterest instead of using. Well, I mean, you cannot really compete with other social media because Pinterest is not actually social media. Maybe they started as social media, but right now they are actually more like a search engine. So totally should get into learn how to use the Pinterest on your blog and your post. That would totally help you boost your ranking and get found more.
Yes, something else really great that Pinterest does for business users, which it's really easy to create a business account there. If you have a personal account, you're able to switch it to business. Is that if you buy $10 worth of ads, then they'll give you 60 US dollars worth of ads for free. And they do promotions like that like a couple times a year. And I like always take advantage of them. And just like even if I use the full $60 worth of ads on one post, that I think like a lot of people will like or find popular, it'll bring enough people onto my Pinterest page and onto my blog that it can be more worth it rather than like giving $10 for like 6 posts.
Cool. So you actually use the Pinterest advertising also.
Yes.
So can you share us a little bit about like how to look into the analytic data? Like, do you have some analytic data that you definitely especially look into, and that would actually help a lot?
So I pay to have Squarespace as my like website
Mm-hmm.
host, and they give just like a ton of information on analytics and really just like break everything down. I know that there are like other websites that also help out with that. I think like there's like a Google search engine that helps. But yeah, for me, Squarespace like really lets me know like a lot about my readers. It breaks down like the geography for my readers. It like guesses whether like what gender they are. It tells me like what time my readers go on the most often. It tells me if like what websites people are coming from. Like, for example, in June, I posted one of my posts it called 27 Best Things to Do in Berlin this summer in the Berlin expats Facebook group. And it got really popular inside of that group. And I got about like 8,000 views from that. And like Squarespace told me like every single person who was clicking on that link from Facebook. So I'm not sure what other equivalents of that there are, but I'm pretty happy with Squarespace because yeah, they really break down everything nicely for me. And also, I use Mailchimp to send
Mm-hmm.
emails out to my subscribers, and they don't give as much information, but they do let me know when people are opening my posts or clicking on my link, so I'm kind of able to see what my readers enjoy the most.
Hmm. Cool. Now I have to explain a little bit. I have a little section that is to turn my podcast guest as a podcast host. To some of them are personally already podcast hosts, but some of them are not. So it's a very interesting session. So Natalie, now you are a podcast host. So what are you going to ask?
So there's one big question that I have for you, and that's that there's a lot of people who say on like in their Instagram bios or Twitter bios that they're entrepreneurs, but that word has been kind of like oversaturated, and for some people it doesn't mean a ton because they are like, okay, what exactly is an entrepreneur? But you actually are one. So what advice can you give to someone who wants to be an entrepreneur?
So, interesting thing is, I recently start to introduce myself. Say I'm an entrepreneur turned to business coach. Maybe for some people that sounds downgrade, or maybe some people that sounds upgrade, or just means nothing for both of them. But anyway, I think in the past when I was on, well, maybe still am, but when I started my own business a couple of years ago, I wasn't capable of actually coaching people to start their own business or grow their own business too. But now I am capable of doing that. That's why I start to doing business coaching because I believe that I could help people that I want to help. But I think like technically or strategy, there are of course things a lot of things you need to learn in order to start your own business because you have to understand every part of it. Like I was looking into contract of selling um, some of my business assets. That's so hard. I never study anything like low relevant, blah blah. But still, and especially I'm not even doing on like selling to the same in country. So it's very complicated. I have to figure out the text, blah 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 blah. There's so many things to learn. However, I think one thing it's actually the most important is the mindset part. Don't be afraid to fail. Really, I mean, I have no shame of failing, and I don't even think they are failing. I just think they are my experience. So when I share with my friend that okay, I'm been trying this thing, this product, this launch, blah blah blah, it didn't
Mhm.
work or I didn't do it the right way. I would have no shame to actually share. I would try to figure out what went wrong, or is this really a right thing to do for me? So don't be afraid of trying something and that doesn't work. You just have to have this kind of really quickly bounce back, and then you'll try something new or tweak something and
Hmm.
then do it again. That's what I have learned, that most of important thing of being an entrepreneur.
Right. That's understandable because it can be very hard to like put yourself out there, especially on social media and like advertise yourself and your business. Like
Mm-hmm.
I definitely struggle with that a lot, especially on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram.
Mm-hmm. I get it. I get it. I mean, like, I don't have any problem of selling myself, but I'm also not like active social media person. So this is also hard for me to remember to hang out with your community there. Yeah, but I think that nowadays it's just part of like the task you have to do, whether you like or not. But I have to mean that I have to do it better. So I'm definitely not the best one to learn here. But yeah, hopefully we all keep beating our like not that good part and keep improving, and then we can bring the business or life to the next level that we want.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so it was really a fun talk with you. Where can our listener find you online?
So you can find me at pinterest.com/Natalie Etc to see what I'm up to on Pinterest. Instagram.com/Natalie_etc to see what I'm up to on Instagram. And my website is NatalieETC.com. Right now, you can subscribe and receive a PDF that has 50 brunch places in 10 of Berlin's best neighborhoods. And it's also friendly tours, like what's going on with the pandemic. Many of the places offer takeout and things like that. And there will also be an interview up shortly that I'm doing with Irene as a small business and entrepreneur in Berlin.
Cool. Then thank you for coming to our show today. Now it's time to say goodbye to our listener. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
It was wonderful. Bye.
Bye.
So now I would like to hear from you. What did you learn from this episode? What can you actually implement what you have learned today into your life or business? Not just thinking, but starting to take action. And also don't forget to go over on iTunes and leave us your review. Take a screenshot and share with @FemaleEntrepreneur Me. See you next English episode. Bye.